The 2018 election for Georgia's governor was considered to be a historic battle for Georgia's political future. Stacey Abrams and Brian Kemp were watched nationwide, and there was a record set for voter turnout. Their tale is one of a divided community and reflected the polar opposite views within the state. Georgia Shift, a non-profit organization based in Augusta, with efforts on focusing on mobilizing young voters in Augusta who typically have been left out of the political process. They are excited to announce their Get Out to Vote operations has led to a 379% increase in 18 to 34-year-old voter turnout.
What we do is we are dedicated to give young people a seat at the table of democracy. What that means is doing voter engagement, issue advocacy, and leadership development, making sure that young people have a seat at the table when making all of these decisions, whether it be policies, votes, things like that, because a lot of times young people are typically left out of the conversation, and we're bridging that gap. We get our numbers from the Secretary of State, and so just last week, we saw that 18 to 24-year-olds actually had an 800% increase in early vote turnout between 2014 and 2018, and that was just the early voting period wasn't even done yet. And so we didn't, like I said, we didn't do anything magic or anything like that. We just literally deliberately talked to 18 to 24-year-olds and said, hey, what do you care about? And here's what's on the ballot. And they were interested and they wanted to get involved. And so it sort of destroyed any sort of stereotype about young people being lazy and things like that, because they are literally like in line to go to the polls.
When asked about the little amount of libertarians that showed out to vote, this student was not discouraged at all. In fact, he was excited about the growth in the future.
No, I typically stick to libertarian candidates. I like their values, identify with them the most. Based on what I can remember from yesterday, every time I did see a libertarian candidate, I did try to pull for him, but I did vote for Republican and Democrat across the board.
Okay, so what about libertarian values match up with your values?
I think it's a very good, happy middle ground of both liberal and conservative views, not so much wanting to expand the size of the government. I feel like in the case of Stacey Abrams, maybe too much government involvement, even though it's in the sense of equality, it's still a lot of government involvement. I think there's ways we can create equality and better welfare for people without getting the government involved. Of course, that's going to take gradual progression. At the same time, looking to the right, Kemp has some great values. Of course, everybody loves lowering taxes. But given the scandal of which he's been taken to court for the suppression of potential absentee ballots, I feel like that's not someone who I want to be in the state, in such a high position in the state. Even if his ideals are great so far, it seems like that's not the kind of person behind the office that I want to see.
Well, personally, I thought I wanted to exercise my rights, and I didn't really agree with one of the candidates that we were supposed to be voting for, so I thought that it was my responsibility to vote this time. See, like, the main thing I don't want to automatically say because, like, we're both black. More like I just agreed with, like, a lot of her stances, and I felt like they more, like, represented what I stood for compared to, like, Brian Kemp and Ted Metz. This is actually pretty exciting. Like, I never expected to do something like this. Like, when I was younger, I didn't really care that much, but, like, now I feel like I have an obligation to do so.
Some didn't even put the effort out there to vote. Okay, did you vote in the 2018 governor election?
I did not. Well, I didn't really agree with how the whole allegations with Brian Kemp, the voter kind of suppression kind of thing, so I didn't really want to endorse him. And Abrams, I wouldn't say I'm either a Republican or a Democrat, but I wouldn't say I lean to the Democratic side, so she just wasn't someone that reflects what I kind of believe about. So I would say if I was going to vote, it'd be Kemp, but with the whole voter allegations thing, I just didn't feel like that was someone I wanted to back.
Essentially what we do is we talk with them and say, hey, what do you care about and how can we help? And then make sure that they have control over the agenda and what goes on. And it's been helpful, I think, for really changing the conversation about, young people saying millennials don't turn out and things like that. But it's just the fact that if you actually talk to them and the issues that they care about, they will turn out.
But 2018 election for governor was certainly one for the history books.